One of the most controversial religious figures of both antiquity and today is that of Lilith, understood as so many different identities dependent upon the culture and the era, as she frequently evolves from one kind of being to another from the perception of all these different viewpoints. For the Sumerians and Babylonians, Lilith was the daughter of heaven in some cases, closely associated with the goddess Inanna, as well as Ninlil, right? While for the Assyrians and the early Israelites, she was primarily a air or water elemental. By the time we get to the third to fifth centuries CE, the specific demon known as Lilith in this case becomes a prominent figure within rabbinic Judaism, first appearing as an independent evil female spirit in the Babylonian Talmud at that time. And by the time we get to the 8th or 10th century CE, Lilith evolves, at least in literature, into Adam's first wife, arising from the very same dust as Adam when she was created, in contrast to being fashioned from Adam's rib, as was the case with Eve. Yet Lilith will abandon Adam for the archangel Samael. Lilith will also be depicted in ancient and medieval Jewish literature as everything from a monster and serpent to a succubus, draining away the life force of unsuspecting men in their sleep. It is a very complicated topic. So today we hope to explore the complexity of Lilith, unraveling some of her mysteries, which often open up to new questions that defy explanation. So let's jump into this right now. So most scholars have observed Lilith appears in many early sources before Judaism. Okay, specifically those connected to Sumerian and Babylonian and Assyrian tablets, and referred to as the Lilithu. Within these contexts, she is often understood, as I said before, as a water or air wind elemental. In a work associated with the Epic of Gilgamesh as a tablet 12 of the collection, but not directly part of it, dating from around 600 BCE, Lilith is named Kilsukulilake, and it is connected with both a serpent and a zoo bird, the later a divine storm bird and the personification of the southern wind as well as thunder clouds. We're gonna so with the set, let's go all the way back to the Sumerian and the word Lil. So the word Lil means air. So let's go to the first image. For example, Enlil, this is Enlil, for instance, was the Sumerian lord of the air. So the word En means lord, and of course, Lil means air. The oldest known term, which we might suggest relates to Lilith, would then be the plural word lily, which is the feminine or lilitu, which is simply the same in Sumerian as for our modern generic word spirits. Let's temporarily take it down so you can see my face a little bit. In fact, it was quite common in ancient languages that the word for air, let's follow me, word for air also meant breath, and breath also meant spirit. It's the same. So you're going to have in Hebrew the ruha, right? Which is a good example. This is the breath. This is life. It is breathed upon you, but it is also wind. It is also air, right? It is also spirit. So you can see these connections, right? So Therefore, Lil can be used as air, Lil can be used as breath, and Lil can be used as spirit. You got it? See how all these things kind of come together, and obviously the Hebrew and later on the Akkadian Semitic context will connect together too. There is evidence also that she was also called. This is something that a lot of people don't know. Ninlil. Ninlil. Well, what does nin mean? Nin means, as opposed to Lord, which is N, nin means lady, and then lil, of course, means air. So ninlil is lady air, or lady breath, or lady spirit. Hope you got that, right? But what kind of wind is she connected to? And this, I want you to understand, this is kind of a big deal. She's connected to the south wind, specifically the south wind. She is also the wife of Enlil. So Ninlil and Enlil, their husband and wife. Who, by the way, who's also she's known to be connected to, and he's connected to the moon at Tude. Now, so it's interesting. You see how everything kind of comes together. And if you are familiar with the area of Mesopotamia, or hear stories about what Iraq, because that's Iraq today, and the weather, that south wind can be pretty brutal. It's a very strong wind, right? That comes off the Gulf. It really it's powerful. It's hot, and it is to be feared. And of course, you have these elaborate sandstorms, right, that come as a result of that. So many of you who are listening who have been to Iraq, maybe even as in the military context, realize this kind of situation. So it's not just a wind; it's a mighty wind that she's. And so we're going to see this connection also with Lilith. You'll see they all kind of come together, but that's something that I've known for a long time, but is not stressed a lot amongst fellow scholars or even popular today. So hey, I'm just kind of throwing that at you. So there we go. Okay, now also, with this said, in the context of work known as Bilgams and the Netherworld, Bilgams is another word for Gilgamesh, and the placement of the Lilake in the tree, or a tree or a water spirit, maybe, or air spirit, she could be understood in this way too. So she could also be a water spirit. Well, don't worry, we're gonna work this all out. Don't panic. Is she an air spirit or is she a water spirit? Don't worry, we'll get there. Uh, and that's the problem too, is that her origins are sometimes seem like a contradiction, and a lot of people just throw up their hands, going, well, why should we even try? Is it this or is it that? And if I just say yes, it ruins everybody's day. So here we go. Still, it must be recollected that the tree was initially, this world tree that we're going to be talking about, was initially blown over by, guess which wind? The south wind. And so it had to be replanted in the garden of Inanna. So the south wind blows over this world tree. See the connection already? And so Inanna replants it into her garden. A little bit more on language. Later on, when the Akkadians arrive in Mesopotamia, they are Semitic speakers. And so the roots of their language is connected to Hebrew. This is specifically under Sargon the Great. The word lilake, which of course stands for Lilith, in reference to a spirit, a wind, a breath, so to speak, will somehow coincide with a Semitic word, an Akkadian, known as Lilith. And it's interesting, Lilith means night. Oh, means night. In ancient times, if a word sounds like something, then it must be something. And so what will happen with the Akkadians, the next the next level is that the spirit who is also connected to the wind, the south wind specifically, and also connected to breath, air, is also connected to the night. In the Akkadian understanding. And so, in many cases, you'll see in translation in Akkadian tablets, they'll say, oh, this is a female night being or female night demon, depending on the context. Got it? So it gets these overlays. It is a layer cake. Now, according to the work known as the Sumerian Bill Games in Another World, we'll be talking about this now. Let's go to the next image. Inanna, who's also known, oh, this is a great picture. This right here is an image of Enlil and Ninlil together, side by side, husband and wife. Good, good. Let's go to the next image. Here we go. According to this work, Inanna planted this is Inanna, also known as Ishtar, right, who is a goddess of fertility, right? She is a goddess that is very much has aspects of the renewal of life, especially agricultural life, right? So Inanna planted a willow tree in her garden in Uruk. As I mentioned before, it was planted in her paradise, is planted in her garden because the south wind blew it down, right? And so she's replanting it. Let's go to the next image. This tree is called a Huluppu tree. And look, I got a picture of a Huluppu tree. There it is. Now, that she later intended to make use of this little this Huluppu tree to make a new throne from its wood, of course, when the time is right. So the Bill Games and Netherworld story is one of a series of independent stories that were later incorporated into the famous epic of Gilgamesh and became part of the beginning of this epic. Bill Games, as I mentioned before, is just another word for Gilgamesh. This Sumerian material dates from around 2100 BCE. 2100 BCE. It's from the third dynasty of Ur. It does kind of look like a Cabalistic tree, doesn't it? Somebody just made a comment. This is a very short-lived Neo-Sumerian empire that thrived at the same time as the Babylonian Empire founded by Sargon. The story goes that when the separation of sky and earth occurred, so when this separation happened, and you can see already where we're going with this, what's involved in this separation. Okay. It happens to be the south wind. We're back to this again, right? When the separation of sky and earth occurred, a violent south wind from a storm uprooted this Huluppu tree, and Inanna rescued it. Let's go to the next image. Inanna rescued it and planted it in her sacred grove. Here it is again, the Huluppu tree. You can see, so firmly planted, right? So here we have it. Now, many will say that the Huluppu tree, as you can see here, was the world tree, which connects heaven and earth and the underworld. Now, Inanna declares, I brought it to my holy garden. I tended the tree, waiting for my shining throne and bed. So she's also going to make not just a throne out of it, she's going to make her special bed. Well, the story continues. 10 years later, When Inanna was ready to cut down that tree, she is all ready to go. She discovers three creatures had settled in her tree. Let's go to the next image. There we go. It's not very good, but I do want to keep it here. Do you see the snake on the left-hand side, right? There's a snake there. So then a serpent who could not be, I'm quoting now, by the way, from the epic. Then a serpent who could not be charmed made its nest in the roots of the tree. The Anzu bird set up his young in the branches of the tree, and the dark maid Lilith built her home in the trunk. So what we have here is we have a serpent at the base of the tree. Let's go to the next image. You have an Anzu bird in the branches of a tree. This is an example of an Anzu bird, right? Right. And then, of course, you had a Lilith build her home in the trunk. There's no picture of all three of them together. So the next image is just a modern representation of it. So go to the next image. The only reason why I'm showing you this is to see the various placements. Okay, let's go to my mug again, and we'll go from there. So what happens is that you can see the connections already, because typically in the world tree, in the sky part, you would have the birds, and the Anzu bird is in the branches. In the underworld part, this is very ancient. The serpent or the snake represents the underworld, right? And you do have that at the trunk, okay? But now you have this Lilith 2 that's in the middle, right? So I wonder what this means. I'll continue reading this. It says, I wept. This is Inanna saying this. I wept, how I wept, yet they would not leave my tree. Since a snake which fears no spell, so she could do any spell on it, which I think is interesting. That'd be another great aside of how come snakes are impervious to spells. It says a snake fears no spell. Inanna asks her brother Utu, the sun god, to help, but he refuses. So she calls upon Bilgames, also known as Gilgamesh, to slay the serpent. And he does so. Here's a little quote from it. Gilgamesh fastened his armor of 50 minas around his chest. The 50 minas weighed as little to him as 50 feathers. He lifted his bronze axe, the axe of the road, weighing 7 talents and 7 minas to his shoulders. He enters Inanna's holy garden. Gilgamesh struck the serpent, who could not be charmed. Okay, so the snake is struck, slain, right? Curiously, I just want to mention this as an aside. The earliest reference to a demon that's similar to Lilith and a companion of Lilith is on a Sumerian king list, where Gilgamesh's father is also named, and and it's named as Lilu. Just kind of throwing that one in for fun. So in reaction, the Anzu bird living at the top of the tree gathers her young and flies off into the mountains. Again, if this was indeed the world tree, they often had a serpent at the roots and a bird in its branches. Then this leaves and I'll give you the actual word, this leaves the ki, phonetically it'd be K-I, Sikil, S-I-K-I-L, Lil, L-I-L, La, L-A, K, K-E. So, ki, sikil, lil, la, K, right? And of course, we will shorten it to Lilike. See how that works? So what happens is this leaves the Lilike, who made a home within the trunk of the tree. In response to the impending threat, this Lilith destroys its own home and then sets off into the forest. So what is this? Many translate the word Lilith as owl because of its placement within the trunk of a tree, where owls habitually dwell. However, a better translation in this case would seem to be uh, either air spirit or water spirit. Okay. In this sense, Lilith appears to originally be a nature spirit, an elemental spirit associated with either water or air, and conversely, trees. Right? She's right there in the tree. You guys ready to dig a little deeper? Because we're going to do it. Okay, so you're going to have an aha moment. I set the stage. You guys ready for it? Right here, and you didn't know it. I snuck it on you. The very first reference to Lilith, which is around 2000 BCE, many aspects and themes that would later be associated with her are already inferred. You guys ready for it? Here it is. There is, first of all, the association of Lilith with a snake. Right? Yeah. You're going to see, right? Usually equated with either wisdom or conniving or cunning or evil, right? And of course, in many cases, Lilith will be depicted as a snake, right? Second, there is this bird who flees, presumably through flight. And of course, later on, the Lilith will have wings and will also fly. Third, the tree invokes an image of the tree of knowledge. It does. It's a world tree. It's in a garden in which Lilith is said to dwell in many later myths, right? uh, in fact, the tree is located in Inanna's holy garden, again, harkening back to this idea of a Garden of Eden, which, of course, you're going to see later on Lilith connected to. You're already going, wait, this is a lot of stuff. I'm glad you took the time to go through the story. Yes, that's why we're doing it. Finally, it is noteworthy that while Lilith and her bestial companions inspire fear in Inanna, they do not have any fear of her. Gilgamesh, it was the one who kills the snake and frightens the other creatures. In this sense, Inanna is portrayed as unable to ward off these three creatures and needs outside assistance. Gotcha. And so the realm, here we go, the realm of the underworld is represented by the snake. That takes care of that. The realm of the sky is represented by the bird. That takes care of that, right? And the dominion of Inanna is the earth. Well, think about it. If you think about the layer cake of how the Mesopotamian civilization works, right? The layer cake, you have the underworld. Huh, that's right. You have the earth. Huh. And then we'll talk about the missing piece. And then above that, you have the sky. Well, what's this missing piece in between? Water, which is above earth. Earth doesn't, right? Water above the earth. And air. Look, the Lilith fulfills that missing part. And is it not the wind or the air, that the south wind that blows over the tree in the first place? Are you making the connections now? So yes, she could be an elemental of both the air as well as the water, which we're going to go a little bit further here. How are we doing? And so I mean, so you can see the rudiments of where these ideas come from and how it's going to grow and change in different directions. But I'm going to go ahead and go somewhere else. I want to talk about, because a lot of people will talk about the fact that, well, Lilith or the Lilith was originally a goddess, Okay, yes. So let's go there. How do we do that? Well, how we do that is we go back to Lilith in connection to being Ninlil. Ninlil, of course, we're back to this again, who's Lady Air, right? Lady Wind, Lady Spirit, Lady of the Night, right? Okay, so all these associations. So she could also be known as Lady of the Open Field. Remember, she was all the way up. How far up? She was the wife of Enlil herself, right? She was the wife. So that's pretty far up. And so let's talk about the myth of Enlil and Ninlil and the begetting of Nana. Okay, so this is a Sumerian creation myth that dates to the mid to late third millennia and was discovered in the temple library at Nippur and translated in 1918. Let's just take a look at Nippur a little bit here because it connects to the story. So let's go to the next image. Nippur. There it is. So basically, the story begins by describing the city of Nippur, which is presented as the abode of the gods. Samuel Noah Kramer, in his Sumerian literary text from Nippur, this is an old book from 1944, notes that this home seems to be conceived as having existed before even the creation of man. A.R. George proceeds further, stating that according to a well known tradition represented by the myth of Enlil and Ninlil, there was a time when Nippur was a city inhabited by gods, not men. And this would suggest that it had existed from the very beginning. This is from the Babylonian topographical texts. So, yeah, it goes back. In fact, many considered Nippur as the axis mundi, as the center of the earth. Let's go to the next image. Now, one of its inhabitants of Nippur before the founding of the world happens to be Ninlil. The text states that there was a city. By the way, I'm going to read you the text. It's repetitive. It's not me, not me repeating myself. It's the text. Okay, always blame the text. There was a city. There was a city. Yeah, it says it twice. The one we live in. Nippur was the city. The one we live in. Okay. Dur Genabar was the city, the one we live in. Idsala is its holy river. Kar Jiktina is its quay. Kar Asar is its quay where boats make fast. Pulaid is its freshwater well. Idnabartun is its branching canal if one measures from there. Its cultivated land is 50 sars each way. Enlil was one of its young men, and Ninlil was one of its young women. Okay, there you have it. I got to tell you, uh, um, um, I was the archaeologist who trained me, Tammy Snyder, was an expert in all these languages, and also well-known Assyriologist. She was vice president of ASOR many times, which is the top archaeological society in the United States, and she's Claremont Graduate University. But she had a laugh at many of these texts because they're so repetitive. Which is after a while makes it easier to translate because you just translated something and you see the repetition of it again. You're going, well, here we go again. Say the same word. Anyway, moving right along. So what happens is it goes as follows. The goddess now, let's go to the next image. So this is what it looks like today. And by the way, there is indeed these various places. There's the brooks and rivers and so forth. So I mean, the description is accurate to what it kind of what was left today. So we know that there's some memory of it here. Okay, let's take it down. Thank you so much, Margie. There. Okay, so what happens? The goddess by the name of Nun Ba Seganu say that 3 times fast. Nun bar se gnu is then introduced. She's depicted as warning her daughter, Ninlil, about Enlil and his intentions, which are not exactly considered respectable, telling her not to stray close to the river. Ninlil resists, especially his first approach, after which he entreats his minister by the name of Nuska to take him across the river on the other side, and basically says, well, if you won't do it here, because you'll do anything in the city, cross over the river and we'll take care of things there. And what happens is that she crosses over to the river. Let's go to the next image. We actually have an image of this. Oh, next image. There we go. Okay. It takes her to the other side. The couple meet. This is him kind of floating down the river. They float down. They float downstream, either bathing or in a boat. So there we have that depiction there. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for showing that, Margie. That's great. It doesn't have her in the boat yet. The things are just getting ready there. So what happens is they meet together and they kiss, and it gets really very makes you kind of blush reading parts of the section. So after that part, or maybe only I'm the one who blushes. After that part, they kiss and they conceive Shun Akim Babar, who is the moon god. It pretty seems kind of instantaneous. So spontaneous pregnancy, and whoom, there he exists. Soon is also known as a derivation of it, the word sin, right? So the moon, a deity, and of course the feminine form of sin is Sinai, and as in Mount Sinai. So they give birth to the moon. That's great. The story then cuts to Enlil walking in back to the city where the other gods arrest him for his relationship with Ninlil, and they exile him from the city for being ritually impure. I'll read the text. Enlil was walking in the Ki'ur as Enlil was going about in the Ki'ur. The 50 great gods and 7 gods who decide destinies had Enlil arrested in the Ki'ur. Enlil, ritually impure, leave the city. Nun Amnur, ritually impure, leave the city. Enlil, in accordance with what has been decided. Nun Amir, in accordance with what has been decided. Enlil went, Ninlil follow. So now they are thrown out of the city. There follows a very interesting, and I go, why are you telling me this? Because things are going to get more interesting, and it also connects to Lilith. Here we go. There follows 3 similar episodes as Enlil leaves the city. And so what happens is that he speaks, as he leaves, he speaks to the keeper of the city gates, known as the keeper of the holy barrier, or a man of pure luck. Uh, and who's he also speaks to the man who guards the Id Kura. Sorry, that's he also speaks to the Sumerian river of the underworld, and he also talks to the underworld ferryman. So he talks to them. What does he say to these 3? What does he say to the keeper of the city gate? What does he tell to the Sumerian river representative of the underworld? And what does he tell the ferryman? Each time Enlil tells these characters as follows. He says, when your lady Ninlil comes, if she asks after me, don't you tell her where I am. Don't tell. Don't tell. I'm leaving. Well, Ninlil, as I said, follows him, asking each, when did your lord Enlil go by? where did he go by, you guys? To this, Enlil, in disguise, this gets really complicated. So what happens is that each of these characters now suddenly become Enlil, who disguises himself so she doesn't know who they are. I mean, doesn't know it really is her lover. She only sees the facade. What happens is follows. Uh, in disguise, tells her, "My lord has not talked with me at all, O loveliest one. Enlil has not talked with me at all, O loveliest one," says it twice. Upon which Ninlil offers to have sex with him, and each time they conceive another god. Okay, so it's really complicated. So basically, she's going along these three representatives who Enlil initially said, "Shh, don't tell her where I am at." And what happens is that she then goes and asks them where he's at, and at that moment, those characters are replaced with him who is disguised as them, and then she proceeds to think that they're still them and has intercourse with them. And you're going, why is this important? You'll see pretty quickly. So what happens is, every time gods make love, they always produce a god or a goddess. That's just the reality. So what happens is as follows. Um, so two of the offsprings are gods of the underworld. One becomes Nergal Milkamata, and the other is Nanazu. And the third god that's birthed is called Enbelu. So basically, three gods are born as a result. Now, of course, Enlil was being dispatched to the underworld. That's where he's going. That's why he doesn't want his beloved to follow him, because he's being punished for what he's doing. He's being exiled, but she wants to follow him. So Enlil, in summary, is impregnated by him acting as a gatekeeper. And so she gave birth to their son by the name of Nergal. Why is that important? Because Nergal is the god of death. Oh, I'm seeing this now. He's the god of death. So Lilith later on will be connected to death too, right? So this idea of mortality, that life can happen, but there's also death. In a similar manner, she conceived with the underworld god, um, and so and as a result, the man of the river. There's always a old man of the river, right? A man devouring river. So she conceived with this deity, and you get Namazu, right? But once again, this man of the river really at this point is disguised. Really is Enlil. And then, of course, later Enlil disguised himself as the man of the boat, impregnated her with the deity Enbalu, who is the god of rivers and canals. And all of these are also, and of course, in addition to that, you got birth to the moon. So you have all these aspects coming together. You got the moon. Wait, that's the night. It sure is. You got a god of death. Oh, hmm. You got an underworld god, Namazu. And you also have the god of rivers and canals. Well, okay, they all work except for rivers and canals. Oh, but the ancients believed that the rivers and canals came from deep within the earth. And so this is the beginning. So this in Lel is birthing underworld related deities, and of course in connection to death. So the story concludes You are Lord, you are King, Enlil, you are Lord, you are King, Numenor, you are Lord, you are King, you are Supreme Lord, you are powerful Lord, Lord who makes flax grow, Lord who makes barley grow. You are Lord of heaven, Lord of plenty, Lord of the earth. You are the Lord of the earth, Lord of plenty, Lord of heaven, Enlil in the heavens. Enlil is king, right? Lord, whose pronouncement cannot be altered at all. His primordial utterances will not be changed. For the praise spoken for Ninlil, the mother, praise be the great mountain, Father Enlil. And once again, you're seeing this idea that, oh, here we go. So, so Enlil is connected to the heavenly realm of the air, right? And Ninlil is being connected to the underworld realm of the air. Okay, right? Hmm. Let's keep on going. So why was Enlil exiled? Well, of course, we know because of what happened. That's one reason that they had a relation. But let's go a bit further. So various scholars, everybody from Thorkild Jakobsen and Dale Landerville and others said that there's a lot of evidence that Sumerian society prohibited premarital sex to a certain degree. We see this in various works. In fact, however, it depends on the context. So there's special contexts which are an exception. Are you following me yet? Got it? Premarital sex is not permitted with an exception. What's the exception? If it connects to nature and nature magic. In that case, it's acceptable. See how that works? It's a little exception. And so it's okay that they had relations because the moon god was regarded, their son was regarded as rejuvenating living things. Nergal, who's his underworld deity, was associated occasionally with agricultural growth, but also was associated with plague, pestilence, famine, and sudden death. This is not a good one. But once again, you got death, right? This is the death part. Nanazu, of course, the underworld deity, was born, and in Belu, of course, ensured the success of agriculture. It's interesting that they're connected to the life cycles in the earth, but they're connected to life as well as death. The cycles, life and death, life and death. They're part of that process. In that sense, these kinds of this is an exception. This is the sex that is done in the context of nature. Okay. So we move on. So, in other words, this narrative exonerates Enlil and Ninlil, indicating that nature has to have its way, even if societal conventions try to contain that which is sexual desire. Nature finds a way. That it's not for us to judge the gods, because this is part of the rhythm of life. But of course, it does open a caveat for humans under these conditions and these kinds of contexts to engage in these kinds of activities, but only on special occasions, only on sacred moments, sacred holidays, which you're going to see as historians all the way through, even to the dedications to the Syrian deity, as we know from Lucy and the Samosata. Is this interesting? Right. So we do see these ideas now. What will happen is, guess what? It turns out that Lilith will be early on associated with specifically premarital sex, along with ritual prostitution. See the connection? It just kind of hits you like, okay, I got it. Dr. Reedfeld. Yeah, you got it. I gave you 4 instances of that when it comes to Enlil, right? And you're seeing these associations and ideas going right into Lilith. Uh, of course, it was believed that this energy was able to manifest into the natural realm, and that this energy cannot be ignored. So there is a link here. So then Lilith, as Ninlil, was indeed once understood as a goddess with an aspect of her falling from the creation of the world when sky and earth are separated. You got it? And all of a sudden you go, oh, that connects to the tree that blows over the south wind, and you're starting to making all the connections. That's why I had to go really slow because there's so many different working parts. And if you don't take the time, you're gonna miss it. But this is good. So after her death, Ninlil becomes the goddess of the wind, of the south wind, like Enlil. And of course, as the south wind, there is another story of her as the south wind, and the story of Adapa. So, as her husband Enlil was associated, by the way, to the northern winds. So, so Enlil is the north wind, which are a little better, and she's the south wind. As Lady Wind, she was also associated with the Akkadian spirit of wind, known as Lilith. And of course, this is believed to be part of the legend that would go into the Hebrew context. Whew! I'm glad we took the time, but we had to do that because now we have a very strong foundation. Let's go to the next image. Around the same time, the earliest, oh yeah, this is the moon deity that is born. That's cool. See the crescent moon there. So yeah, so that's okay. Let's keep on going. This is again reference to the story. Let's just keep on going there. That's a good one though. This is a representation, by the way, of the underworld, in which Enlil descended to the realm of Erishkigal. Let's go to the next image. It's actually this is I like this image. This is you get the idea of this is how the world operates. You see here you have the heaven above of Anu, right? And you have the heavenly host of gods, which are connected to Nippur. So Nippur would probably be the navel of the earth, the middle. I mean, sort of the top part there. You have the house of constellations there, and you have the mountain continents. And then, of course, you have the abyss, and then all the way down, you have the underworld. So that's a good representation. Yes. Next image. Yeah, we'll keep on going. Not a happy ending there. Oh, let's look at this one. Around the same time, the earliest image of Lilith may appear on what is known as the burning relief. This is the burning relief, named after the original owner. His name is Mr. Sidney Burning. 1936. This relief became associated with the character of Lilith and subsequently has been referred to in various literature as the Lilith relief. This relief is believed to date from the last third of the third millennium BCE, while the identification of its central figure was once much contested. It is generally accepted today that this figure is indeed Lilith. The relief is a terracotta plaque that is 50 by 37 centimeters thick, with a head of the figure projecting 4.5 centimeters from the surface. To manufacture the relief, clay with small calcareous inclusions were mixed with chef. So we have here the British Museum's Department of Scientific Research reports that, quote, it would seem likely that the whole plaque was molded with subsequent modeling of some details and additions of others, such as the rod and ring symbols, the tresses of hair, and the eyes of the owls. The relief was then burnished and polished, and further details were incised with a pointed tool. Overall, the relief is in excellent condition. It's beautiful. It was originally received in three pieces, and they kind of put it all together. Next image. You take a look at those owl eyes. Isn't that great? Right? Let's go to the next image. Now, traces of red pigment still remain on the figure's body that was originally painted red overall. So this is a recreation of what it may have looked like. The feathers of her wings and the owl's feathers were also colored red, alternating with black and white. Um, by the way, the red is red ochre paint. Black pigment was found. The pubic triangle and the areola appear accentuated with red pigment, but were not separately painted black. The nude female figure is realistically sculpted in high relief. Her eyes beneath distinct, joined eyebrows are hollow. Her lips are full and slightly upturned. She is adorned by a four-tiered headdress of horns, topped by a disc. We're wanting to take a look at this because we're getting an actual image of Lilith here. Her head is framed by two braids of hair, with the bulk of her hair in a bun at the back and two wedge-shaped braids extending onto her breasts. The stylized treatment of her hair could represent a ceremonial wig, and some have thought about this. She does wear a broad single necklace, you can see there, composed of squares that are structured with horizontal and vertical lines, right? Maybe it depicts beads, maybe, possibly. Around both wrists, she wears bracelets, which are composed of three rings, right? And then you have these two rod and ring symbols. Of course, only the left one is preserved. You also have two wings. These are clearly defined. You see the wings right there. Stylized feathers and three registers extend from her shoulder. Her wings are spread in a triangle shape, but they're not fully extended. Look at this, and you got these bird feet. It's pretty detailed with three long, well-separated toes, approximately of equal length, right? And look here, the owls. The owls shown they're very recognizable. They're not sculpted in a natural way. The shape of the beak, the length of the legs, the details, the plumage deviate from those of owls that are indigenous to the region. Uh, so she does not look like a lowly she demon, does she not? No, no. She still retains this feeling that she is a goddess who does appear in this image to tame wild beasts, and of course, you can see the connection to owls. Uh, you can see this already in the early legends, and also the connection to night, which does fully settle the Akkadian context. In general, the burning relief is an amalgamation of symbols and images that depict both Inanna, because you have the rod and ring, you have the Shigora crown and lions, but it also depicts Lilith. So you do have the owls and other imagery that connects to so it's a combination. So you're going to see in various books they'll say this is Inanna, and other places you're going to see that this is Lilith, and you're going, well, which one is it? And my answer to you will be yes. Because you can see that Lilith is an aspect of Inanna. So Inanna, of course, connects to the life processes, but Lilith connects to which is inevitable, and that is the death part. Got it? So you have the idea of fertility of the fields, but you also have the death of those fields. It's all part of the natural cycle, and there's rejuvenation. Even though not always Inanna is connected to childbirth, that's sometimes reserved for other gods. Still, the idea is you have this concept of life, and then you have this concept of death, And oftentimes, this idea of death will extend into the death of infants. And it's explained in a natural sense. So Lilith will be connected then to the death of an infant. And you're going to see this very strongly coming along here. So as opposed to, I know some people will say maybe it's a threefold deity. This is kind of a twofold deity. It's a twofer, but there you have it. Let's go to the next image. The rod and the ring are interpreted different ways. Uh, Basically, it's described as measuring or a survey instrument that could be the symbols of kingship or queenship, because they're given by a god to a king to use in laying out the temple. In fact, Inanna also gives what is called the puka and the muku to this. These are these rods to Gilgamesh in the story of Gilgamesh and the Huluppu tree, but of course he uses it unwisely. So basically, it could mean drum and drumstick. So these are emblems of power, emblems of leadership. And hey, look, this image of Lilith is holding this power. So it's not, again, not a demon, right? The mysterious Muku and Puku, they also connect to, as you can see here, a female and male principles. You don't have to do too much guesswork to figure that out, right? Emphasizing the sexual symbolism that you see in the burning relief, right? So is this helpful, right? So you're seeing these connections. So if you're looking for a time when Lilith or the Lilitu are connected to that she's a goddess, we have it here. Okay, so we do have it here. We've captured it. We saw it. Okay, now we're going to go, unfortunately, to the gradual slipping. Okay, let's take this image down. So moving on. By the way, an aside can be made that the muku and puku, these the rod and stick or drum and drumstick, are related in some cases to the Egyptian ankh, which is generally said to mean life and is carried in the hands of gods and goddesses. The ankh has a similar arrangement of an oval and a line. In the most general sense, the symbol depicts another pair of opposites, but also shows how they are connected together as one. Okay, now Lilith's or Lilith's association with Inanna is found in many Sumerian and Babylonian accounts. She is oftentimes called the handmaiden of Inanna or the hand of Inanna. Another epithet, I want you to know this one. Another epithet for Lilith in these ancient documents is that she is oftentimes called the beautiful maiden. She is beautiful, but she is a maiden. In fact, Lilith is always a perpetual maiden. Her breasts were always, according to descriptions, barren of milk. Her womb is always described as eternally barren of any child. And so Lilith could not bear children. So she, again, while Inanna is all about connecting to life and life force, and of course you have sometimes her, but other Sumerian and Akkadian deities connected with the idea of birth, right, of human birth. Lilith is connected with the cessation of it, of death, of barrenness. So she is used to explain the fact for women when they can't conceive, they say, well, Lilith has sealed my womb. See how that works? There's a reason for it. I can't conceive. It's not my fault. It's she has sealed my womb. It's a good justification. It's like, well, this is how the goddess wills it to be. And so remember, everything in ancient times is connected to some deity or another. You got to have a deity connected to barrenness. And so Lilith will take that on and take that aspect and run with it, so to speak. Now, Like Inanna, Lilith was connected to ritual prostitution, intended to inspire sexual activity with men so that the resulting union would bring about fertility magic. Remember, I told you that everything's within the bonds of marriage except for what? Certain ritual moments, ritual actions within a religious context. Within that, then it's considered nature activities. And so it's okay, right? And so the idea is this is fertility magic through directing. And what she does is she then takes this energy that these through her powers, and it is then directed towards the fields and to the animals. So this energy is used in that sense. One Sumerian text states as follows. I'm just going to read, as opposed to me telling you. I'll let the ancient Sumerians tell you, okay? That way there's no misunderstanding. It says, Inanna has sent the beautiful, unmarried, and seductive prostitute, Lilith, out into the fields and streets in order to lead men astray, unquote. Okay, that's pretty direct, okay? Lilith only inspired sexual activity amongst the unmarried, however, okay? Those who are often strangers to one another and never, this is interesting, never married couples, okay? She was not about human reproduction, either as a result of these unions, but she was all about the energy it was able to manifest for the natural realm. See, so she's not there to break up marriages, right? It's the unmarried. Okay, I gave you a lot of information, but I think this is helpful because I want you to know beyond a reasonable doubt. That's why I keep quoting ancient sources on you. Okay, let's keep going. Lilith is often described as having been a Sumerian succubus. Now, you have this too. Things will start to change. Certain beings, known as the Ardent Lily, were affiliated with the Lilith aspect. The word Ardatu was a term that describes a young woman or maiden of marrying age. Thus, the Ardot Lily were sexually active female spirits. So she has under her a host of these female spirits. And of course, you could say maybe they're succubi. It was believed that these night spirits were the cause for erotic dreams, by which they robbed the male of semen and spiritual vitality. So the idea is like, well, they can either get this energy by day, by you willing to be a part of it. You still have to be unmarried and single, but you could still do this in a ritual context within the temple and so forth to give life to the natural world and to agriculture and to the cattle and so forth. But also you have these hosts sneaking it away at night as well. Of course, there's a male version of this entity, but we're not there at this point. It is also interesting to note that the Sumerian word for wantonness is lilu, and the word for luxuriousness was lalu, the same kind of root. Also, the very word for evil was limu. So it's like this. So you can see these words kind of mixed together. This has obvious relations to the word lily and the R. Lily specifically, not just in a similarity to how it's pronounced and spelling, but also the very definition of the words. Keep in mind that these ancient languages did not possess the specific definition as our modern words. A single word would indicate any one of a number of related concepts. Unlike others who were viewed as lower spirits or demons, many of the magical incantations specifically call her the daughter of heaven. This made her unique, for she did good or harm out of her own free will. Oh, because she's a daughter of heaven. So she has free will. And you can see this free will later on move into her incarnation as the uh, as the companion to Adam, right? She has her own free will. She's the daughter, because she's the daughter of heaven. So she was unique. She had her own free will, and she wasn't an automaton. Did not have to do things out of a preordained designation, as was the case of the Lamashtu. For those living in ancient Mesopotamia, inclusive of the Sumerians, Akkadians, and Assyrians, the spirits who were viewed as ultimately subordinate to the all high gods, like Anu and Enki, were called Shidu, or also known as Lamasu. So let's take a look at one right now. These spirits are depicted as hybrids, typically with a human head, a lion or a bull body, and having wings. They could act either good or evil, depending on the Shadu. And sometimes they were a little of both, almost like the jinn. In fact, there is a relationship between the jinn and this in a conceptual sense. The Shiddu Lamasu, as beneficial, were often depicted as guardians that protect people's houses and homes and temples. And so, yes, the Blue Gate Guardians would be versions of these protective spirits. Yes, often their images were buried under the door's threshold, keeping the evil spirits out, and even the evil people out, who are influenced by them, keep them out of the household. In a grander residences and palace, the Shedu or Lamasu were carved as a pair of guardians flanking the entrance, and sometimes they were quite grand indeed. Other Shedu or Lamasu were harmful, and let's go to the next one. One example was known as Pazuzu. When you see this image, there's a reference to this in the novel, in the work known as The Exorcist. So this is Pazuzu. Images of Pazuzu, also known as Zu, are everywhere to be found within the material culture. Pazuzu has oftentimes the face of a dog with bulging eyes and sharp talons and wings of a bird, has a scaly body, a scorpion's tail. Pazuzu was believed to be the demon of the southwest wind, as opposed to the south wind, which is, of course, Lilith. As an evil spirit, he was the one who took the tablets of Enlil's destiny and is killed because of this. In this context, he brought diseases that had no cure, right? Yet with Pazuzu, a spirit often viewed as evil could act to do good actions. In fact, in other traditions, Pazuzu was believed to have the power to ward off the southwest and the west wind, and the various pestilence connected to it. As an evil spirit, Pazuzu still can be called upon to attack other evil spirits. So, for the greater benefit of humanity, he's often invoked to fight the more corrupt Lamastu, right? Uh, let's talk about the Lamashtu. Let's next image. Now, this is the Lamashtu. This is a demon with the head of a lion, a donkey's teeth and ears, very hairy body, long fingers, bird feet, and long talons. Once again, these are demons. Notice though that these demons or spirits of the air have bird feet. You did notice that Lilith had the bird feet going on there, so there is still a connection going. Let's go to the next image. Nothing like seeing an ancient image of it. So that's what they look like to the ancients. Let's go to the next image too. Yeah, so you get an idea of what they look like. Heck, we'll go for one more image. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and see me for just a little bit. So what we do have, right, is that the Lamashtu, they're sometimes shown as even nursing the pig, but they're poised to attack the unborn or the newly born or nursing infants. Uh, so it gets pretty dark, uh, and oftentimes, you're going to have the Lamashtu. This is in female guise. What typically they'll depict her as making threats to new mothers. Now, there's a reason for this. I have to say that uh, having a baby in the ancient world was not easy. So one out of four, in some cases, one out of three uh, babies died in childbirth. So it's a very precarious period of time, and so this happened a lot. And then within the first 2 years, you had another, sometimes one fourth or one third will not survive. So infant mortality rates are really high up. So again, you're having the stress being interpreted in ways of, well, it is the lamashtu that caused me to lose the baby, or whatever it may be. So what happens is, if she, the lamashtu, is able to touch the woman's pregnant belly 7 times, the baby will miscarriage. To stop her from doing so, women often wore amulets to protect their belly, and sometimes this image was of the bronze head amulet of Pazuzu, her arch nemesis. Yet she also enjoys slaying men and drinking their blood too. Now remember, the Lamashtu and the Lilith, who are connected as servants of Lilith, they're all related. They are related to one another. And of course, things are starting to de-evolve pretty quickly here, right? So you can track the descent of Lilith, right? Are you seeing it, right? Gradually, slowly, she's being pulled down by her subordinates and then seen as one in the same. Got it? Pulled down by her subordinates and then being seen as one and the same. Still, however, you have this idea, but they have power, right? So can they be used for good? Well, even the evil Lamashtu are used in magic to heal. So yeah, so anything is fair game because it's all about power. And if you can grab that power and harness it, you can force that which is evil, if it has power, to do good. These ideas will feed into many kinds of Semitic contexts, the most famous being Solomon, right? Solomon, who has the power over the demons and through the Solomonic ring. And so they are able to build the Temple of Solomon, right? Right? I mean, they're demons, right? But they're made to do so. So you can still employ them. Something we don't quite understand in the modern world, how the ancient mind works. So, according to an incantation to dispel lasting fever and the Lamashtu, the prescribed ritual involves a Lamashtu figurine. You have a sacrifice of bread must be made before the figurine, and water must be poured over it. A black dog must be made to carry the figurines. You got to find some black dog somewhere. Then it is placed near the head of a sick child for 3 days, with the heart of a piglet placed in its mouth. The incantation must be recited 3 times a day, which I don't have here. Besides further food sacrifices, at dusk on the third day, the figurine is taken outdoors and buried near the wall. So, yeah, so like is like. So while it can give you diseases and make you sick, it can also receive it back and be taken away if you do the proper ritual to harness that power. That power is malleable. That power to give illness can be thrown back to that which gives it in the first place. Again, this is understanding Mesopotamian magical notions. But Lilith was different because she could do good or evil as a result of her own free will, as opposed to being harnessed as some magical tool. You can't use Lilith as a tool. Never do it. So she produced by inspiring sexual activity, even though she has her minions below her. And this affected the life of plants and animals. But just as quickly, she could change her mind and take life away. She seduced men to have sex for the natural energy to perpetuate life, but she would also harm women about to give birth. She could kill a baby if she wishes, but the surviving incantations makes it clear that she could also save them too, only if she wishes. If she desired, she could cause sickness and death and even kill the plants too, but she could do the reverse as well. In this sense, already by the time of the Sumerians and the Babylonians, Lilith was understood as very unpredictable. She is a free agent, neither quite God or demon, but hovering somewhere in the realm of between. That's the reality. Because of her liminal nature, Lilith would take on the attributes and even the iconography of both Inanna as well as Erishkigal, the goddess of Irkalla, the land of the dead and the underworld. Erishkigal, of course, is the neglected side of Inanna, right? Has certain qualities that are similar to Lilith, right? Both are connected to the nighttime aspects of the feminine. They're both powerful, have a very powerful and raging sense of sexuality. They have deep wounds accumulated from life's rejections. They seek solace. Lilith usually flees from rejections. Rishkigal withdraws underground. All right. In the Huluppu tree story, when Lilith could not have her own way, what does she do? She destroys it, right? She causes destruction, where before it was a place of life. Already from that beginning, it becomes a place of destruction. The powerful Lilith of Inanna's adolescent days had to be sent away so Inanna's life exploring talents could be developed. But now that Inanna has become queen of her city, wife to her beloved, mother to her children, she is more able to face what she has neglected. So what will happen is the Inanna aspect will move further and further away from the Lilith aspect. Those two sides of the coin are now going to be separated eventually, right? So you see that. Two other Mesopotamian demons have a close relation to Lilitu and Lilith. It's Galu and Alu. Alu was originally an asexual demon who took on female attributes but later became a male demon. Alu liked to roam the streets like a stray dog at night and creep into people's bedrooms as they slept to terrify them. He was also described as being half human and half devil. He also appears in Jewish lore as Alu. Here he is used as one of Lilith's secret names. That's the connection. In other texts, Alu is a daughter of Lilith who has intercourse with men. The other demon is Galu. Galu's name was used in general for sometimes multiple demons, and basically known to be child stealing as well as, again, killing kids, right? By the time we get to the Assyrians, the Lilitu became increasingly collective demons associated with storms, diseases, lion, and the desert. They were also known to fall upon women and children in these descriptions. Let's go to the next image. The Lilitu had zoo bird wings and talons. One amulet. Now, here's some of the other of these demons. Let's go to the next image. There we go. One amulet from Arslan Tosh contains an incantation against Lilith, with an image showing a sphinx-like creatures with wings that are devouring a child. So another incantation describes her as follows. It says, the space between her legs is as a scorpion, corresponding to the astrological sign of Scorpio. Her head is that of a lion. She has an Anzu bird like Lilitu. Her breasts are suckled by a pig and a dog, and she rides the back of a donkey. And she is described as the seven enchantresses. So there we have it. Yeah, that one looks almost Egyptian, but you have, of course, these images that move across the Middle East, especially on the Phoenician coast. Okay, so we go to let's go to the next image. Oh, here we go. All right, so yet Lilith was also worshipped during the late Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian period, and even after that, about ancient Near East, as part of what's called the Shedim cult. That this is a cult that was also evident in Israel. These Shedim were elemental demons associated with water, often known as storm gods. Jewish stories concerning their origins include the belief that they arose from demons but took on the form of serpents. There's another story that God made their spirits but did not make them bodies, forgetting to do so as he rested on the seventh day. There's another story is that they are descendants of Adam and Lilith. There's another that following the Tower of Babel. Some of those scattered became known as the Shedem. Also Ruchen and Lilith, and who are demonic. Now, as for the Hebrew Bible itself, here we go. The general word Lilith, right? The word Lilith or Lilith may appear in Isaiah 34:14 and is translated as various things. Sometimes it's translated as night creatures. Sometimes it's translated as night monster or night hag or screech owl. Now you actually know why they're translated it this way. Okay. So there you have it. Let's go to the next line, the next image. That's set in Hebrew. So there it is right here. But there are many possible variant readings. So the American Standard says, and the wild beasts of the desert shall meet with the wolves, and the wild goat shall cry to its fellow. Yea, the night monster shall settle there and shall find her place of rest. So this is night monster, right? So okay, there you have that. In the you have in the Revised Standard Version, they will use the word night hag. Edmonds Bible Dictionary says, well, no, really, it's a screech owl. There's other versions, of course. So I'm going to give you just kind of go through all the various versions because nobody knows how to translate this thing. So you're going to have, night owl, a night a specter, night monster. The NASB says night monster. Oh, I love the Moffat translation. Get this. The Moffat translation says vampire. Vampire. You got night hag. That's the Revised Standard Version. In the Jerusalem Bible, they'll actually use the word Lilith. In the New American Bible, they will use the word Lilith. In the Message Bible, they will use the word Lilith. I like that. I think maybe it's best to keep it vague. However, the NIV, the New King James versions, the NLT, they'll use the translation, get this, night creature, and a New World Translation, night jar, and the English Standard Version, night bird. So there you have it. No, so when people say, "Hey, the translations of the Bible," it's always, it's always pretty consistent. I think I listed like 10 different ways they translated the same word, and I gave you the reference. So the answer is, well, who knows what it means, right? Okay, so let's there we go. Let's see my. I think we'll see my face for a few moments. Okay, so the Deutero Isaiah which does date to the 6th century BCE, and connects to the presence of the Jews of Babylon. It coincides with the attested reference to the Lilith in Babylonian demonology. The Septuagint translates this word, the Lilith word, as onokentoras. So basically, you're not going to believe this. Satire. So okay. So there you go. So there's or satyrs. Excuse me, satyrs. So I meant satyrs. Sorry. So you got satyrs out there. So we have all kinds of creatures out there: vampires and satyrs and night owls and screech owls, and it just means they don't know. So I think I'm taking down. I hate to do this, but biblical scholarship gets a little problematic at times if you have that many translations of something. Screech Owl, though, is very popular among so many translations. The name Lilith appears in the Dead Sea Scrolls within a list of monsters in the Song of the Sage. Let's Tipper. Let's just see real quick the Dead Sea scroll that I'm talking about, and then we'll just keep on going. It goes as follows. Okay. And I, the instructor, proclaim his glorious splendor so as to frighten and to terrify all the spirits of the destroying angels, spirits of the bastards, demons, Lilith, howlers, and desert dwellers, and those which fall upon men without warning to lead them astray from a spirit of understanding, and to make their heart and there's a break in the text, desolate during the present dominion of wickedness and predetermined time of humiliations for the Son of Light, by the guilt of the ages, those smitten by iniquity, not for eternal destruction, but for an era of humiliation for transgression. So, kind of a positive uh, text there. So, yeah, akin to Isaiah 34:14. This liturgical text both cautions against the presence of supernatural malevolence and assumes familiarity with Lilith, right? So there seems to be that there. Another text discovered at Qumran, conveniently associated with the book of Proverbs, uh, appropriates the Lilith tradition in the description of a precarious, winsome woman. It's called, the name of the work is called The Seductress. 4Q 184. The ancient poem, dated to the 1st century BCE, but it could be much older, describes a dangerous woman and consequently warns against encounters with her. Customarily, the woman depicted in this text is equated to be the strange woman of Proverbs 2 and 5, and for good reason. The parallels are instantly recognizable. Proverbs 2:18 says, her house sinks down to death, and her course leads to the shades. All who go to her cannot return and find again the paths of light, of life, excuse me. Meanwhile, 4Q184 says, her gates are gates of death, and from the entrance of the house she sets out towards Sheol. None of those who enter there will ever return, and all who possess her will descend to the pit. However, what this association does not take into account are additional descriptions of the seductress from Qumran that cannot be found attributed to the strange woman in Proverbs, namely that she has horns and she has wings. It says a multitude of sins is in her wings. She's also described as a prostitute. In fact, you're going to see a whole bunch of the attributes that we see within the Melu of the Lilith and Lilith referred to directly in this text. It's not vague; it's pretty direct. Is this interesting? So again, we're having these ideas kind of coming over right there, but also it does mention the demoness known as Lilith too. So you have it by name as well. So you have the name and you have the attributes. Surprisingly, there's a consistency here. Did you notice? Now the Testament. We'll take this one down. Thank you. So the Testament of Solomon is a book which is part of the Pseudodipigraphia. Say that 3 times fast. Pseudodipigraphia, Pseudodipigraphia, Pseudodipigraphia. Okay, I did. This is a collection of texts written between 200 BCE to 200 CE and ascribed to various key figures. Although we know the earliest, of course, compendium of demons is connected here. You have King Solomon that is also referred to here. There is a reference to Lilith in this text of the Testament of Solomon. It's more detailed than the Epic of Gilgamesh, and more importantly, introduces a clearly different version of the Lilith story, that of a child slaying spirit, although we do already have that, but that was contemporaneous with the Assyrians, right? While the character in question does not identify herself by name as Lilith, she goes by the name of Obizuth. Her own self-description clearly identifies her with a person who will be known as Lilith. So the text in question, found in chapter 57, this is a translation of James Charlesworth, who I actually know, and I've actually published. He actually, I had a magazine years ago, and I published one of his articles. So, uh, great scholar from Princeton University. So he says as follows: the translation. He says, "As I adored the Lord God of Israel, and made another demon present himself, and there came before me a spirit in woman's form that had a head without any limbs." This is the beginning of this idea. With head without any limbs, and her hair was disheveled. And I said to her, "Who art thou?" But she answered, "Nay, who art thou? And why dost thou want to hear concerning me? But as thou wouldst learn, here I stand before thy faith. Go then into thy royal storehouse and wash thy hands, then sit down afresh before thy tribunal and ask me questions, and thou shalt learn, O king, that I am. All right, now you're getting this idea of the Lilith or Lilith that has the disheveled hair and has a long snake-like body. This is where this begins. Here it starts, and you're going to see this continue all the way into the Middle Ages, right? And I, Solomon, did as she enjoined me, and restrained myself because of the wisdom dwelling within me, in order that I might hear of her deeds, and appreciate them, and manifest them to men. And I sat down and said to the demon, "Who art thou?" And she said, "I am called Obizuth, and by night I sleep not, but go my rounds over all the world, and visit women in childbirth. And dividing the hour, I take my stand, and if I am lucky, I strangle the child. But if not, I retire to another place. For I cannot a single night retire unsuccessfully. For I am a fierce spirit of myriads of names and many shapes. And now hither and thither I roam, and to the westerning parts I go my rounds. But as I now is, thou hast sealed me round with the ring of God. Thou hast done nothing. I am not standing before thee, and thou wilt not be able to command me. For I have no work other than the destruction of children, and the making of their ears to be deaf, and the working of evil to their eyes, and the binding of their mouths with a bond, and the ruin of their minds, and the painting of their bodies. Okay. So when I, Solomon, heard this, I marveled at her appearance, for I beheld all her body to be in darkness. But her glance was altogether bright and cheery. What? Here we go. Remember we talked about the beautiful Lilith? There it is. So wait a minute. She beheld her body. It's to be in darkness, but her glance was altogether bright and cheery. And her hair was tossed wildly like a dragon's, and the whole of her limbs were invisible, so you couldn't see the limbs. And her voice was very clear as it came to me. A better translation, like James Charlesworth, would be clear as in pure. It's a good voice. And we'll see this later on. It's a singing voice, like a siren. So here is melodious, beautiful enchantress. And I cunningly said, "Tell me by what angel thou art frustrated, O evil spirit." But she answered me, "By the angel of God called Araphoth, which is interpreted as Raphael, by whom I am frustrated now for all time." Right? His name, if any man knows it, and writes a name on a woman in childbirth, then I shall not be able to enter her. Now, did you catch that? So if you put on you the name Araphoth, which is interpreted to be Raphael. He says, by whom I am frustrated now and for all time. His name, if any man know it, and write the same on a woman in childbirth, then I shall not be able to enter her. Of this name, the number is 640. And I, Solomon, having heard this, and having glorified the Lord, ordered her hair to be bound, and that she should be hung up in front of the temple of God, that all the children of Israel, as they passed, might see it and glorify the Lord God of Israel, who has given me the authority with the wisdom and power from God, by which of this signet, all right, the ring. So he binds her, right? She holds her. But there's a few interesting things going on here. One should note the physical appearance of Lilith, Obazuth in the text. Her eyes are bright and cheery. Her hair is wild. Note, too, that one of Solomon's punishments for Lilith is to bind her hair and hang her in front of the temple for all to see. And of course, what happens is that the hair was connected in a biblical sense to the crowning glory, a symbol of wisdom, an aspect of feminine nature. And so, brides of Christ, Vestal virgins, and Orthodox Jews, brides, have been made to sacrifice their long, seductive, and staring hair because of this reason, right? Woman's hair has to be cut and bound and covered in an effort to separate her from her goddess-given sexuality, right? Which is the seductive power of Lilith, right? So this is being pulled back, right? The importance of Lilith's hair will be seen again in the reference in the Talmud, and will play an even more important role as it moves into Rossetti's portrayal of Lilith. So, I mean, it goes all the way through. In this passage, however, it is interesting to note that Lilith's hair is forcibly bound, contributing to stripping away of her power. So she loses her power, and she is put on display, objectified by Solomon as a lesson to the children of Israel. The idea of Lilith as a lesson is also of importance, for it will later be shown that Lilith murdering of children was seen as punishment for those who have sinned. The fact that Lilith is connected with punishment and retribution in this early text, therefore, should help to explain how her later portrayals developed. Primarily, however, this passage is important for various consideration of Lilith being, of course, child killing, right? Um, Now, while the role of Lilith as the first wife of Adam, yet to be introduced, is more closely associated with the first aspect, um, it should be also understood that she still is in this. She still is very independent, has her own sense of free will. She could do whatever she wants. Yet Solomon, in this case, was able to um, control her. Right. So um, there's another incarnation of Lilith as a child destroying seductress that we see in various ways. Let's go to the next image. So what happens is there. So what happens is that we will see that there are much in the way of amulets, bowls, and incantations that connect with this Lilith, who is used for magic. That's Lilith. That's the one that's below. Let's go. I forgot to show you these. We have some other images of Solomon depictions here, so we'll go there. Next image. So this is a modern depiction, and I'm showing this intentionally. So this is supposed to be a modern depiction of Lilith as understood from this text, and I don't think it fits at all, does it? Clearly, there is a bias here. Let's go to the next image. This is probably, except with having arms, this is a little better. Let's go to the next one. This is a modern rendition of it, but I think it's interesting that I don't know what it is, but when it comes to various Christian contexts, or just in popular imagination, if it's evil, it has to look ugly. It has to look disgusting. And here this text is saying she's beautiful and her eyes are this way, and then somebody depicts it as like, what is that? And so it's almost like as if we cannot we don't want to face something that is beautiful because it's tempting for ourselves. So we have to make it look ugly. We have to make Satan look ugly like a little red devil and so forth, because even though it doesn't fit the biblical description, it makes us feel more comfortable with rejecting it. Got it? And so they do the same thing with Lilith. And here we have these depictions that seem to be very positive. Let's go to the next image. And so, yeah, you have amulets. So these are amulets connected with Lilith. So we find Lilith on amulets and bowls and incantations and plaques used to ward off evil. Even evil specifically, when harnessed in order to save infants. So in many ways, the slain spirit of Lilith can also, that slain ass could be reversed upon itself and used to protect the child. This is the way magic works. Let's go to the next image. So this right here is an amulet for a mother and newborn. And in this case, it's bind Lilith in chains, reads this amulet. Lilith in the center is bound by chains, and God's real name has been inscribed as well as some abbreviated lines from the Torah of the Bible. So you have this one, bind her to save us. Let's go to the next image. So interesting, some invocations of Lilith continue well into the 19th century. Some scholars even assert that there are persons alive today who still carry on the tradition of wearing amulets to guard against the spirit of Lilith during childbirth. And this is an example of one that is from the Ottoman Empire. Okay, so let's go to the next image. What about Lilith? This is like a nice woodcut, but it kind of follows how we understood in the Talmud. The Lilith of the Talmud, which is 200 to 500 CE, definitely connects to certain myths in Mesopotamia and in various traditions. Okay, so let's see me for a few moments. In this, of course, in the Talmud, Rob Judah cites Samuel ruled and says this. It says, if an abortion had the likeness of Lilith, this is from the Jewish Talmud, in the likeness of Lilith, its mother is unclean by reason of the birth, for it is a child, but it has wings. Once again, you see the wing aspect there. Once again, if an abortion had the likeness of Lilith, its mother is unclean by reason of the birth, for it is a child, but it has wings. Lilith is also described, of course, as having very long hair, and expounding upon the curses of womanhood. Moreta was taught that she grows long hair like Lilith, sits when making water like a beast, and serves as a bolster for her husband. Wow. In connection with lust, Lilith was already known to seduce and have sex with men in the Talmud. Also, Hanina said, one may not sleep in a house alone, or in a lonely house, and whoever sleeps in a house alone is seized by Lilith. This, of course, has to do with nocturnal emissions, right? Also, the Talmud states, if an abortion has, let's see, oh, okay, this is another one. Okay, never mind. Yeah, a female demon of the night, according to one of these. Oh, here it is. It happens at Semai that a woman aborted in the likeness of Lilith, and when the case came up for a decision before the sages, they ruled that it was a child, but it also had wings. So it's another reference to the fact that if you are interacting, if there's interaction with Lilith, then there is wings. Okay, interesting. So there's a lot here. Oh, yeah. There's a lot in the Talmud that connects to Lilith. But what about Lilith and Adam, right? You know, where will this start to come about, right? And so we have an interlude, but you have the Talmud relates. Eliezer states, In all those years, here we go, 130 years after his expulsion from the Garden of Eden, during which Adam was under the ban, he begot ghosts and male demons and female demons, or night demons. For it is said in Scripture, and Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness, after his own image, from which it followed that until that time he did not beget after his own image. When he saw that through him death was ordained as punishment, he spent 130 years in fasting. He severed connections with his wife, that means Eve, for 130 years, and wore clothes of fig on his body for 130 years. Wow. Okay. That statement from Rabbi Jeremiah was made in reference to the semen that he admitted accidentally. This passage is referred to later in the Zohar with the comment that she wanders about at night, vexing the sons of men and causing them to defile themselves. And these two passages were understood then to refer to Lilith. In this scenario, Adam and Lilith did beget demons and ghost children through her snatching of his nocturnal emissions. The Talmud appears to combine Lilith with many earlier traditions, bringing them all together. For not only is there evidence of the Lilith from Mesopotamia, but it also ties to the Greek and Roman Lamia. Let's go to the next image. Once upon a time, Lamia was the beautiful mistress of Zeus himself, but the jealous wife Hera slayed all of her children except for Scylla, and turns her into a hideous demon who hunts and eats children. According to another story, Hera steals all of Lamia's children, making her lose her mind, so that she begins to kill and eat other children out of her sense of loss and envy. After a while, she turns into a demon due to this lowly, excessive, and obsessive behavior. She will eventually have the upper half of a woman and a lower half of a serpent. There we go. Next image. As for her eyes, Hera cursed them to never close, so that she could constantly think about her deceased or missing children. But Zeus compensated, allowing her to take out her eyes from her sockets. Zeus also gave her the ability to see into the future with those very eyes, making her a Sibyl. Lamia gave birth to Empose, which are basically demons who harass travelers and were known to either eat or scare to death anyone who they decided to possess. So we have connections here. Let's go to the Nippur bowls. Found in Nippur, Babylonia, the Nippur bowls contains some of the most lengthy and explicit references to Lilith up to this point. Of the 40 bowls which were excavated, 26, so out of the 40, 26 explicitly mention the figure of Lilith. And at least 3 of these bowls contain sketches of Lilith as their central image. So we're seeing one right here. While the date was originally placed around 500 CE, 600 CE is currently the most accepted date. The bowls were used mostly by Jews, a detail which is substantiated by the fact that an important Jewish colony was located in Nippur during the 6th century. Interesting that it's Nippur. We talked about that already. These bowls are particularly important, for while the Talmud contains the views of the learned elite about Lilith, these bowls show what she meant for the more simple commoners. Let's go to the next image. As a whole, the texts of these bowls are magical incantations against various forms of illnesses and demons. The ones which feature Lilith, however, give enough additional information as to provide a synopsis of how these commoners viewed her at this time. Pate says as follows, quote, "It appears that Lilith was regarded as the ghostly paramour of men and constituted a special danger for women during many periods of their sexual life cycle, before defloweration, during menstruation, etc. A mother in the hour of childbirth and her newborn babe were especially vulnerable and therefore had to be protected from the Liliths. It would appear, therefore, that the two strands of Lilith have joined together at this point, right? So this is my comment. Child Slayer and Succubus. Let's go to the next image. It is beneficial, to quote the next bull, which of course is the next image. Let's go to the next one. Where Lilith appears naked and wingless, with long, loose hair, chained ankles, prominent breasts, and a strongly marked genitalia. This text, which appears in various resources, goes as follows. It says as follows. You are bound, it says. You have to read it in a circle as you go around here. You are bound and sealed, all you demons and devils and Liliths, by the hard and strong and mighty bond with which are tied Sisson and Sisson, the evil Lilith who causes the hearts of men to go astray and appears in the dreams of the night and in the visions of the day, who burns and casts down with nightmares, attacks and kills children, boys and girls. She is conquered and sealed away from the house and from the threshold of Bahran Gashuch, son of Ishtar Nahid, by the talisman of Metatron, the great prince who is called the great healer of mercy, who vanquishes demons and devils, black arts, and mighty spells, and keeps them away from the houses and threshold of Bahram Gushlas, son of Ishtar Nahid. Amen, amen, Silah. Vanquished are the black arts and mighty spells. You get the idea. It mentions Lilith a few times. So you have this idea of how this context. By the 8th to 10th century, Lilith then became known. Finally, we have evidence of her as, next image, as the wife of Adam. So here's this story. This is the alphabet of Surah. Somewhat here it says the 6th century. Others have it from around 700 to 1000. The alphabet of Sirach is an anonymous work, which has been, has a large range of possibilities. The text itself is kind of like a midrash, but it kind of tells a story here. Almost seems like an anti-Jewish satire in some ways. It's very strange. There's some very strange parts about it. But here's the text. It says, after God created Adam, who was alone, he said, it is not good for man to be alone. He then created a woman for Adam, for the earth as he had created Adam himself, and called her Lilith. So Lilith is created out of the same earth stuff as Adam. Adam and Lilith immediately began to fight. She's very independent. She said, I will not lie below. And he says, I will not lie beneath you, but only on top. For you are fit only to be in the bottom position, while I am to be in the superior one. Lilith responded, we are equal to each other inasmuch as we were both created from the earth. But they would not listen to one another. When Lilith saw this, she pronounced the ineffable name, which is the name of God, and flew away into the air. Adam stood in prayer before his creator. Sovereign of the universe, he said, the woman you gave me has run away. I can see why. At once the Holy One, blessed be he, sent these 3 angels to bring her back. So that's kind of the story there. Let's go to the next image. We have some depictions of this already. Of course, you're going to have this idea of her in association with trees here. So, which I think it's interesting. Let's take this image down. That's good. So yeah, what else can I say, right? So this begins this narrative, right? Now, according to the Kabbalah, now Lilith, who occupies the realm of shells, known as Klipholth, which corresponds to the 10th Sira down the Kabbalic tree of life, known as Malkut, or the kingdom. So she's connected to this. Now, I guess I'm going to show the next image. So let's go to the next image. And then I'm going to show this image briefly, but I want to show you another image. See, again, we're having the association right here of you have Lilith suddenly becoming slowly but surely connected to, this is later art, obviously, to the tree. But let's go to the next image. This is a modern image, the next one. But I'm bringing it up for a reason. Very strange image. It's a modern depiction. And go, why in the world am I bringing up this one? Here we go. According to the Kabbalah, the light of God does not emanate directly in the realm of shells, but indirectly via God's creation. And it can be viewed as representing the earth. As I said, the kingdom, Melkuth, which is the material world, the place of sensual delights. Lilith resides here and intends to seduce all those who are open to her to embrace the material world. She connects to the material world with all its pleasures. So she is connected to enjoying the pleasures of the flesh. She often appears as a beautiful woman in these contexts. Other times, Lilith will appear as a beautiful blue butterfly, attractive to behold, mesmerizing even, bewildering through her enchantments, and convincing those who listen to simply enjoy their animal-like natures, their exterior self, and the material realm, so that they will descend into more of an animal consciousness in the next life. Isn't that interesting? So she will appear as a beautiful woman. She will appear as a beautiful blue butterfly, or she will appear as a combination of both. But there's nobody makes images of these. So I found one that seems to correspond to that idea, right? So, but once again, there's a connection with beauty. Okay, let's go take that down. Thank you so much. In the 13th century, the Kabbalistic work known as the Zohar, we're making some progress here, right? 13th century. This is a non-legalistic exegetical work known as the Agadah, tells a story whereby Lilith leaves Adam after refusing his authority. But in this case, she gets together with somebody. She gets together. What? Oh, yeah, here we go. She gets together with the archangel Samael, where after having sex, she refuses to return to the Garden of Eden. So there you have it, right? Let's go to the next image. So the story of Lilith and Samael is a complicated one, but that can be put together via various Kabbalistic works. According to the Jewish 13th century Kabbalistic work known as the left hand emanation, one known as Blind Dragon, actually arranges the marriage between Lilith and Samael, who is often specifically viewed as the dragon that is from the sea, also known as the Leviathan. I'm quoting now, I shall explain this relying here. In the day of the Lord will punish with his great, cruel, and mighty sword Leviathan, the twisted serpent, and Leviathan, the torturous serpent. As there is a pure Leviathan of the sea, it is called a serpent. So there is a great defiled serpent in the sea in a literal sense. This same holds as the hidden way. And so this blind dragon brings about the union of Samael, and Lilith. And this is just as a dragon that is like in the sea. Lilith and Samael have intercourse via the blind dragon, this snake, according to the left hand emanation. Did you guys get all those pieces together? So I guess I'll go ahead and read it because, hearing it's probably even better than just me telling you it. You already know that evil Samael and wicked Lilith are like a sexual pair who, by means of an intermediary, receive an evil and wicked emanation from one and emanate to the other. The heavenly serpent is a blind prince, the image of an intermediary between Samael and Lilith. Its name is Canon-Ever. The master of tradition said that just as this serpent slithers without eyes, so the supernal serpent has the image of a spiritual form without color. These are actually the eyes. The traditionalists call it the eyeless creature, therefore, its name is Canon-Ever. He is the bound, the accompaniment, and the union between Samael and Lilith. If he were created whole in the fullness of his emanation, he would have destroyed the world in an instant. Unquote. In fact, Lilith, in many ways, becomes understood as an aspect of this serpent. This is where you see this connected in medieval iconography. It says, I found written in the name of an ancient traditionalist and in the name of the perfect Hassad of blessed memory that Lilith also is Tanisum. They said that this name is based on the serpent who is in the image of an intermediary between Lilith and her mate. So once again, you're seeing this aspect of the serpent combining with Lilith. Also, make things be more complicated. Lilith and Samael are both described in another passage as serpents. So they both become serpents. According to medieval traditions, God castrated Samael to stop Lilith from giving birth to demon children from him because every time they interact, more demons are being born. And so frustrated from producing in this way, she moved on to other men and demons. In certain traditions, Lilith and Samael were together from the beginning, part of a double being that is androgynous. So let's look at me for a few moments. So now we go a little deeper. We're going really pretty far down the rabbit hole here. So this is from the left hand emanation, quoting Moses of Solomon of Burgos. He says as follows: both Samael, king of the demons, and Lilith were born in a spiritual birth androgynously. The tree of knowledge of good and evil is an epithet for Samael and grandmother Lilith. As a result, of course, of Adam's sin, both of them came and confused the whole world, both the upper one and the nether one, unquote. Okay. The two are also mentioned as androgynous in the Zohar, Zitre Torah. Hey, you guys wanted primary sources? Am I giving them? Right. Um, Concerning Jacob's journey. And so the secret of secrets, it goes. Out of the scorching noon of Isaac, out of the dregs of wine, a fungus emerged, a cluster, male and female together, red as a rose, expanding in many directions and paths. The male was called Samael. His female is always included within him, it says, within him. Just as it is on the side of holiness, so it is on the other side, male and female embracing one another. The female of Samael is called serpent, woman of whoredom, and of all flesh, and of days. Two evil spirits together. The spirit of the male is subtle. The spirit of the female is diffused in many ways and paths but joined to the spirit of the male. Unquote. Wow. So the treatise of the left emanation defines another Jewish legend concerning Lilith, where here she's actually combined with the spirit Samael as a combined androgynous form. They have two faces born out of these emanations from the throne of God, acting as a counterbalance to Adam and Eve. A counterbalance to Adam and Eve. And of course, it goes in answer to your questions concerning Lilith. I shall explain to you the essence of the matter. Concerning this point, there is a received tradition from the ancient sages who made use of the secret knowledge of the lesser palaces, which is the manipulation of demons and a ladder by which one ascends to the prophetic levels. In this tradition, it is made clear that Samael and Lilith were born as one, similar to the form of Adam and Eve, who are also born as one, reflecting what is above. This is the account of Lilith which has received by the sages of the secret knowledge of the palaces. Unquote. The archangel Samael first appears in the Talmud around 200 CE, whose name means the severity of God, right? He is said to cross the line between good and evil, for he is the destroyer, the accuser, and also the seducer. He is often understood as the angel of death. According to rabbinic tradition, it was next image. It was Samael who wrestled with Jacob, and the angel who held back the arms of Abraham to stop him from sacrificing Isaac. In the ascension of Moses, Samael occupies the seventh heaven, right? The seventh heaven. Sorry. And of course, he's also known as the angel of wrath, right? Apparently, you can take this down. That's good. Apparently, the archangel Samael had a voracious, sexual appetite and frequently mated with other angels or those known as the angels of prostitution. For example, you have Izheth, meaning the woman of whoredom, who, according to the Kabbalah, was the princess of the realm of shells and oversaw specifically the realm of Sathrael, focusing upon the act of concealment of God, who hides the face of mercy. The demons residing here have black veiled heads. Oh, let's show the next image. I gotta show you. Black veiled heads with their hideous eyes peering through and horns, and are accompanied by evil centaurs. Eseth was known to eat the souls of the damned, so you might say that her and Samael have a working relationship, for as the angel of death, he will bring the damned to her, right? Another one, next image, is Agat Bat Malat, who is the queen of the demons, often known as the dancing roof demon. She is a demon of the air who moves about the skies in her chariot, accompanied by 18 myriads of messengers of destruction. She knows Lilith quite well, and apparently, while she dances, Lilith howls. She is also the mistress of all sorceresses, both the Kabbalah and the medieval rabbi by the name of Rashba say that Agrat Bat Malat mated with King David himself and so bore the half demon by the name of Asmodeus, who would become king of the demons. You have another one, demon, you can take that down now, who mated with Archangel Samael. There's quite a few here, right? So it's just one on the list. Um, and that is Nama, who happens to be Lilith's demonic female companion. And together they visited the archangel. They have a similar specialty. For while Lilith kills children, Nama gives them epilepsy. Her children born from Samael become the plagues of mankind. According to the Talmud, it was Asmodeus and not Samael who ends up as Lilith's consort and even marries her. The name Asmodeus is derived from the word asma, which means wrath, and what is one of the demons of Zoroastrianism. Let's take a look at Asmodeus. Next image. According to the book of Tobit, Asmodeus is attracted to Sarah, Ragu's daughter, and is possessive of her, not permitting any husband to survive their wedding night, slaying each one before one could consummate their marriage. When Tobit was about to marry Sarah, Asmodeus threatened the same, but Tobias called upon the archangel Raphael, who told him to place the heart and liver of a fish on hot cinders, This vapor forced Asmodeus to flee to Egypt, where he is bound by an angel. Typically, he is considered the angel of lust. So there you have that. So let's go to the next image. When all this is said, there's an indication in the Zohar. This, by the way, this image is from Notre Dame Cathedral. So with all this said, there's an indication in the Zohar that Lilith will be or is restored, possibly to God at one point. But in some Jewish myths, Lilith is actually the serpent that tempts Eve. And now you understand where this comes from, right? You can see the line of reasoning. And I'll go ahead and the serpent, the woman of harlotry, incited and seduced Eve through the husks of light, which in as itself is holiness. And the serpent seduced holy Eve, and enough said for him who understands. And all this ruination came about because Adam, the first man, coupled with Eve while she was in her menstrual impurity, it says here. This is the filth and impure seed of the serpent who mounted Eve before Adam mounted her. Behold, here it is before you. Because of the sins of Adam, the first man, all the things mentioned came into being. For evil Lilith, when she saw the greatness of his corruption, became strong in her husks, and came to Adam against his will, and became hot from him, and bore him many demons and spirits and Lilith. So there you have it. Uh, so let's take a look at some of the image of her connected as the tree. So you have there's one depiction right there. Let's go for that one there. Next one. There we go again. So you know that this is not. There's another one, right? So another one. There's another one right there. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. But let's go to the next one. What's going on here? Wow. Okay. Of course, I got to play all different sides. Yet Lilith is also connected to the angels. What? Yeah, it's about turn in certain respects. Of course, demons have some angel in them, according to the Zohar. Let's see me for a little bit. It says, therefore, in the Zohar, all the spirits and demons have one half from man below and the other half from the angels of the superior realm. But furthermore, Lilith appears to have originated, according to the Zohar, from the flames of the cherubim's swords. I'll go ahead and read it. She approached the gates of paradise on earth and saw the cherubim guarding the gates of paradise and sat down facing the flaming sword, for she originated from that flame. Ooh, we're getting an interesting restoration here. When that flame revolved, she fled. This would tie into Lilith as a guardian spirit via the fire of the flaming cherub swords and further connects her to the ancient Mesopotamian guardian spirits. Yes. So there is still that aspect, a positive aspect of Lilith that lives on in certain traditions and still gets in with a Jewish understanding in the Zohar. The cherubim, of course, are the ones, get this, who guarded the tree of knowledge. Right? Hence, she, as the flame, would also be guarding this tree, and perhaps along with the serpent, or perhaps as the serpent who gives that wisdom. So, wow, we just keep going. The cherubim also guard the fixed stars of the constellations. Let's go to the next image. Each one designated to one of these stars. Yet we know that Lilith guards what? Lilith guards a star. But that's the job of the cherubim. She guards the star known as Algol, a fixed star in the constellation of Taurus. This star was oftentimes called Lilith's star, according to Jewish legend. Curiously, this same star is connected to the eye of Medusa that Perseus used to turn his enemies into stone. Yet Cornelius Agrippa says that one can make an El-Gol talisman for good success to petitions, I'm quoting, and make him go, carried it boldly and magnanimously, and preserve the members of the body sound, also helped against evilness, evil magic, and reflected back evil endeavors, and wicked incantations upon our adversaries. So again, it can be used in that way. Okay, so in fact, according to, let's see me a little bit, according to the ancient fragment of the Key of Solomon, Lilith may be the demonic counterpart of the guardian of these stars. The ninth number is 9. The ninth sephira is Yasod, or the fundamental principle. The spirits of Yasod are the cherubim or angels, those powers which fungate the earth and which are represented in Hebrew symbolism under the form of bowls. Their empire is that of fecundity. They correspond to true ideas. They have for adversaries the Gamil, or the obscene, whose queen is Lilith, the demon of debaucheries, unquote. Within a cornucopia of stories related to Lilith within Jewish tradition, we got a big taste of that. Lilith was also known to have become a succubus, especially mentioned in the Zohar and the alphabet of Ben Sira. In fact, all those who mated with Samael were deemed as a succubus, including Malath, Agrappa, Malat, and Nama, which we just talked about before. In general, a demonic succubus will most often take the form of a very beautiful woman and will approach a man while he is sleeping, and then, of course, steal his seed away with designs of intimacy. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. Is described as a beautiful seductress. So take a look at this medieval version of this beautiful seductress. You just can't make this up. Next image. That doesn't look very beautiful to me. I know. What is it with these monks who just cannot draw something that's beautiful? Yeah, we're tempted by this. You got a face on your belly there. You got a face on your knees there. Wow, that's really attractive. Apparently, there's a big smile there, so it's going over pretty well. So let's use another image as a modern image. That's not too. There we go. It's a little better, because they just can't handle it. Okay, so although now all encounters with succubi are experienced while sleeping, for some men are awakened, enchanted, and then either voluntarily submit or coerced to do so, inclusive of other sexual acts beyond simple coitus. But there's always some physical anomaly that permits them to be detected. And for example, they may, how do I put this? They may have some horns. They look like a regular woman, but they have some horns, or they have a serpentine tail, or yeah, they're pretty cute, but their legs, it looks like bird-like claws. There's always something that gives it away. And so there were a few during the Middle Ages, self-designated succubus hunters that went around looking for these. So there, Lilith as a succubus directly connects to the moon. That's why I'm also showing this image, with her activities, according to the Zohar, being quite frequent. They are especially active in collecting the seed of men during the time of the diminishing moon. And it says, and she goes and roams the world at night and makes sport of men and causes them to emit seed. And wherever men are found sleeping alone in a house, these spirits, descend upon them and get hold of them and adhere to them and take desire from them and bear from them. And they also afflict them with diseases, and the men do not know it. And all this is because of the diminishing of the moon, says the Zohar, chapter 1, 19b, right? But it is with the new moon that these men who are born in connection to Lilith experience suffering for their association with her. It says, on every new moon, that spirit of evil appearances becomes stirred up by Lilith. And at that time, that man suffers harm from the spirit and falls to the ground and cannot get up or even die. So again, once again, with the new moon, those men who were born in connection to Lilith experiences suffering for their association with them. The Zohar says also, and when Lilith comes and sees, oh, this is kind of weird. I'm going to read this. Let's see me. Go ahead and see me now. Thank you, Margie. And also it says, when Lilith comes and sees that child that's going to live, right? She knows what happened, and she ties herself to him and brings him up like all those other sons of Nama. So, you're born of her, she will make sure that she watches after you in her own way. And she is with them many times, but does not kill them. This is the man who becomes blemished on every new moon, for she never gives up. For month after month, when the moon becomes renewed in the world, Lilith comes forth and visits all those she brings up and makes sport of them. And therefore, that person is blemished at that time. So you have this deep connection. Sometimes a spirit known as a Sirta is involved in the process of suffering at the new moon. It says, and that spirit, which is called a Sirta, becomes stirred up and goes to the female who is beneath all females, and she is Lilith, the mother of demons. And a man may become stirred up by that evil spirit called a Sirta, which attaches himself to that man and ties himself to that person permanently. And on every new moon, that spirit of evil appears and becomes stirred up by Lilith. And at that time, that man suffers harm from spirit and again falls. So again, like epilepsy. Also, and during the new moon, Lilith toys with children, making them laugh. Now, this is really creepy. It says, and this is the secret of the children laughing in their sleep when they are small. It is from Lilith who plays with them. And I heard that when a small child laughs during the Sabbath night or the night of the new moon, it is because Lilith is playing with them. And it is well that his father or mother or anyone who sees him laugh should tap his nose with his finger and say, go from here, you accursed one, for you have no resting place here. Let him say this 3 times, and each time he recites his incantation, let him tap the child's nose. So Lilith, once again, unpredictable. Lilith can come around and take the child's life, or if she feels like it, she will just be like really sweet and play with them. Again, this interesting back and forth action. Well, as noted by Heinrich Kramer in his Malleus Maleficarum, right, written in 1486, the hammer of malefactors, not witches, right? The goal of the succubus is to collect semen from those whom she seduces. And so you have, once again, these stories. Then, of course, allows her essence to bewitch it. And after that, she gives the semen to the incubi, the male demons, who do the same operation as a succubus, except on females, and they implant the tainted seed within the woman. So it's kind of like so basically the succubus take it from the man, and then the incubus then give it to the woman. See how that works? But never themselves directly. And of course, Kramer believes that this is how these demons reproduce. And of course, we talked about sometimes you just get a very weak person that these various creatures follow around, including Lilith herself. But it is also said, of course, connected to various mystical beings. And so you're going to have, according to some stories, Merlin is connected to being a result of these interactions. Okay, so next image, we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon. And we actually, okay, here we go. Okay, what in the world's going on here? But not all succubi are necessarily wicked. Some were kindly and cared about those they at first enchanted. And you're going to see this also with Lilith. Again, unpredictable. An example would be Pope Sylvester II, who was Pope from 999 to 103, who fell in love with the succubus, according to many beliefs, known as Mary Diana, and she in turn helped him gain the papacy. Before Sylvester died, he confessed his sins. He was originally known as Gerbert of Aurich, an English monk. Uh, he was also a cardinal, but he's also known to be a practitioner of magic, supposedly, according to rumor, having gained his knowledge from studies of mathematics and astrology while in Muslim Spain. It was claimed that he took a spell book and was trying to divine the future of the stars. And so one day, what happened is that he was by a bridge, and he came across this Meridiana while walking in the woods near the church he was visiting. Suddenly, he sees what he described as an angel. This is why I'm bringing it up. And as an angel bathing in a nearby river, she was naked. He watched her for a while. And then when he was leaving, she spotted him. The two met. The temptation was too much, and it happened. When he wakes up, he is back in his own bed, feeling energized, and then turns to find Meridiana lying next to him, thoroughly satisfied by her meal, but awake. She announces that she knows of his little loneliness problem and might just be willing to give him a hand with it under two conditions. One, he could never tell anybody about her or blow her cover. Two, he was to be hers and hers only, basically her only personal pet from there on out. But she shows a lot of affection towards towards him. So the idea is that he gives her meals, but she in turn gives him energy, and it's like this reciprocal relationship. Uh, Eventually, of course, he becomes Pope. Suppose this is all rumor, obviously, but still deals in with what people think. Eventually, of course, when on his deathbed, he reveals this. Okay, so you can take this down. Meanwhile, in Arabic lore, Karina was considered Lilith's equivalent. She is mentioned as child stealing and killing babies as well. And so, uh, in this context, Karina plays the role of a shadow of a woman and corresponds with a male demon by the name of Karen, who is also the shadow of a man. Should a woman marry, her Karina marries the man's Karen. When the woman becomes pregnant, is when Karina will cause her chaos, and she will try to drive the woman out and take her place, causing miscarriages and so forth and so on. All right, so now we're moving from there. We're moving into the more of the modern world. Of course, we have Goethe, and Goethe Lilith appears in his works in Faust, part one. I'll just read briefly. So we only have a couple more pages left here. Goethe says Faust is, "Who's that there?" Mephistopheles says, "Take a good look. It's Lilith." Faust says, "Lilith? Who is that?" Mephistopheles says, "Adam's wife, his first. Beware of her. Her beauty's one boast is her dangerous hair. When Lilith winds it tight around young men, she doesn't soon let go of them again." So there you have it. After Mephistopheles offers this warning to Faust, he then, quite in an ironic way, encourages Faust to dance with the pretty witch. Lilith and Faust engage in a short dialogue where Lilith recounts the days spent in Eden. Faust dancing with the young witch. A lovely dream I dreamed one day. I saw a green-leaved apple tree, two apples swayed upon a stem, so tempting. I climbed for them, the pretty witch. Ever since the days of Eden, apples have been man's desire. How overjoyed I am to think, sir, apples grow too in my garden, unquote. And then we get to, of course, the Raphaelite Brotherhood, which developed in 1848, which is influenced by Goethe's work, continued with its devotion to Lilith. And then, of course, in 1863, Dante Gabriel Rossetti. By the way, I know somebody who is related to him through a long line. And her dad was an artist, and she was an artist too. So the Rossetti line just kept on going. Dante Gabriel Rossetti was of the Brotherhood, and he began painting what would be his first rendition of Lady Lilith. Let's get to the next image. A painting he expected to be his best picture. Symbols appearing in the painting allude to the female fatale, of course, a reputation of a romantic Lilith, poppies, death and cold, and white roses, sterile passion. You see it in these kinds of images. Accompanying his Lady Lilith painting from 1863, Rossetti wrote a sonnet titled Lilith, which was first published in Swinburne's Pamphlet Review. And he says as follows: Of Adam's first wife, Lilith, it is told, the which he loved before the gift of Eve, the ere the snakes her sweet tongue could deceive, and her enchanted hair was the first gold, and still she sits, young while the earth is old, and suddenly of herself contemplative, draws men to watch the bright web she can weave, till heart and body and life are its hold, the rose and poppy are her flower, for where it is he not found, O Lilith, whom shed scent, and soft shed kisses, and soft sleep shall snare? Lo, as the youth's eyes burn at thine, so went thy spell through him, and left his straight neck bent, and round his heart one straggling golden hair. So once again, the hair notion continues on. In 1881, the Lilith sonnet was renamed Body's Beauty in order to contrast it with the soul's beauty. You can take this down. Also, of course, you had the Victorian poet Robert Browning, who then re-envisions Lilith in his poem. He says, Adam, of course, it's called Adam, Lilith, and Eve. First published in 1883, the poem uses the traditional myths surrounding the triad of Adam, Eve, and Lilith. Browning depicts Lilith and Eve as being friendly with one another. As they sit together on either side of Adam, under the threat of death, Eve admits that she, never loved Adam, while Lilith confesses that she always loved him. Here's a poet. As the worst of the venom left my lips, I thought, if despite this lie he strips the mask from my soul with a kiss, I crawl, his slave, soul, body, and all. Browning's great. He's a great poet. Anyway, and then we move on to next image. Dion Fortune, 1890 to 1946. Very important British occultist, part of the Society of Inner Light. She writes that the Virgin Mary is reflected in Lilith, that Lilith is the source of lustful dreams. Indeed, if one meditates on the negative or inverted Binah, one readily finds Lilith. To worship Lilith is to use the power of the Holy Spirit for negative purposes. So you have that. You have also, of course, Aleister Crowley, right? Lilith actually used. Lilith was actually one of his was a middle name of one of his actually his first child. And he talks about, of course, in Chaos Magical Rites, which is based on a Germanic rite, an invocation of Lilith. Dark is she, but brilliant. Black are her wings, black on black. Her lips are red as a rose, kissing all of the universe. She is Lilith, who leadeth forth the hordes of the abyss and leadeth man to liberation. She is not the irresistible fulfiller of all lust. Sorry, she is the irresistible fulfiller of all lust, seer of desire. First of all woman was she, Lilith, not Eve was the first. Her hand brings forth the revolution of the will and true freedom of the mind. And it goes on. Within Wicca, Charles Leland associated Aradia with Lilith. Aradia is Herodias, who is regarded in Stragaria folklore as being associated with Diana, chief of witches. Gerald Gardner asserted there was continuous historical worship of Lilith to the present day. Doreen Valente also believed the same. I can take the image down. And so there is a reinterpretation of Lilith. And so who is she, right? Later on, Lilith will be viewed as the embodiment of the goddess, that she is to be connected with Inanna and Ishtar and Arnoth and Isis, right? According to one view, Lilith was indeed a mother goddess of childbirth, and she was inverted, and of children, and of women, of sexuality. But I got to be honest here. I don't see that in the ancient sources. I do see her as an exalted goddess. Don't. I do believe that. But having gone through these connections, I don't see her necessarily as a goddess of motherhood. What I do see her as is a goddess connected to the energy, the power of fertility, as well as the cessation, the ending of that power. She is, while Inanna will have that power, it is the Lilith that brings it out. But it also is the Lilith energy that limits it. That goes, there is still a natural cycle that must be understood. There has to be life, and I will allow for that life. But there also has to be death. There also has to be cessation of that movement, of that motive. And that makes sense because the ancients are trying to understand the world around them. They're trying to explain why the harvests are not working. This is a bad harvest, right? They're trying to understand why my wife is not getting pregnant. It's not working, or there's miscarriages, and this has to be there has to be an explanation, and that explanation is personified, but in so many different ways. She still is this energy because she's an elemental. She is the energy. Got it? So yes, she's a goddess, but she's also the energy of the goddess. And so that's why she moves into the realm of the spirit, right? And the realm of the spirit can do all kinds of things. But at the same time, just like life, she's a bit chaotic. There's order, but there's chaos. And so Lilith is about that chaos and explaining that chaos in life. That this energy doesn't always work, And so, but she has a mind of her own. She has a will of her own. And I do have to say that is that she is a very strong feminine force, a very strong female force. And you can see that reverberated all the way through Jewish literature. There's no question about it. She is a strong figure. Can she be reforged into a strong feminine figure to inspire others? Yes, you can. But at the same time, I probably would not include motherhood under that connection because that seems to go against the ancient understanding of it. That seems to be too much revisionism. Let's understand these deities, how they were understood. We can evolve them, we can change them, aspects of it, but let's not divert entirely from who they are. She is, and so that's the reality. Is that helpful? Right. So there is a context. We've actually dug so deeply into the context behind Lilith that it's hard to shake any other ideal that she is an elemental, she is a power, an energy, but she is unpredictable. And she does have a very strong will, but at the same time, um, there has to be respect. There has to be a sense of a sobriety when dealing with this kind of force. But isn't that true with nature in general? Isn't nature unpredictable? We take a look, at one day, it rains and we're so thankful for that rain. And then all of a sudden it pours and we have a flood, we have mudslides, right? Nature is always has that aspect of chaos, and it seems to have a will of its own. She is that will. She is that south wind that blows and moves across the desert and pushes the sand into the eyes. She is that creature, that Lilith, that when forced to leave, she destroys everything in her nest in the tree, right? But she's also used in a way to give life, to create stability, and to make the crops grow and the animals to thrive. So there you have Lilith. Thank you so much for coming to this talk. I hope you enjoyed it. It has been a great journey. My focus is always upon primary sources. I took the time to read them to you. Sometimes I feel that too many people depend on secondary sources, what other people say about Lilith. And so this way you can hear for yourself and possibly decide for yourself who Lilith is from those sources. Thank you all. Good night.